Yesterday, I'm just sitting there up to like 60, you know? I had some mercy. Okay. So as the Shechina and I discussed yesterday, no. Okay, so we got 73. No, we're 30. We're 36b, the third line, the first word, and we're in the middle of discussing. A lot of it's very practical. I mean, not exactly. Meaning, could be practical. It's relevant. Forbidden milk, the whole idea of Chol Yisrael and Pas Yisrael, and the Mishnah prohibited idol worshippers milk and bread, oil. Some allowed oil. We're up to Gufa. Gufa we discussed in the previous text. Right here, the third line, first word. 36b.
Oh,
yeah.
I got further than
that. Yeah, showing off. There you go. We'll catch up soon. So Gufa, Amar Bali, interesting name. Amar Avimi Nosa Mishmei Derab, in the name of Rab. Piton, bread, their bread. Ushmanan, and their oil. Yenan, their wine. Ubinosehan, and their daughters. Kulan, all of them. We'll see what the decrees are. Were decreed about Mishmona Asar Davarhain. In the beginning of Masechah Shabbos, there are 18 decrees that are mentioned over there. So he's saying that 4 of these are from those 18. So now we're going to go through one by one. Binosehen Maihi. What exactly is the decree about their daughters? Amr of Nachum Bar Yitzchak, Gazru al Binosehen. They decreed about their daughters, Binosehen Nidos Na'arusehin. Na'arisosan. They decreed that the non-Jewish daughters should be considered nidas from their crib, from like 1 day old. We'll see why. Vigneva. Vigneva. Mishmei de Rav Amar. He said in the name of Rav, who on all of these decrees, Mishum Avodah Zora, were all because of idol worshippers. Let's see. When Racha came, he said in Rabbi Yitzchak, Gazru al Piton. They decreed about the bread. Why? Because of the oil. So right there, the Gemara stops. You decreed on the idol worshippers' bread because of their oil. Why is oil more stringent than bread that you're going to decree the bread to be forbidden because of the oil? Says Gemara, you're right. Ella Pitan Ushmein, on both their bread and their oil will be decreed. Why? Because of their wine. And the wine is a real problem because these are idol worship. Mishum Yenan. Now, why did they decree that the wine is prohibited? The Al Yenan Mishum Binoseyan. So here's a little bit of a contradiction from earlier Gemara. They try to figure it out. It sounds like earlier they decreed about the wine because we're worried that they use the wine for idol worship. Here it sounds like the idol worshippers' wine is decreed. Why? Mishum Binoseyan, because of their daughters. We'll see that they want to avoid mingling. Mm-hmm. So those two reasons, how you reconcile those could make practical differences. So Vial Binoseyan, now the wine was decreed because of their daughters. And here we're going to have a vague statement, which we're going to get back to the bottom of the page. Vial Binoseyan Mishum Davar Acher, because of another matter. Another matter is usually a clean way of saying idol worship. And then the al davar acher mishum davar acher, and then another matter was decreed because of another matter. Now, what those two matters are, we'll see at the bottom. So, okay. So now the Gemara is like, one second. You made a decree about their daughters. One second. What was the decree? Simply understood, you don't want a Jew to marry their daughter, and that's because of a rabbinical decree. Says the Gemara, Binoseyan. Steve, if you want, you can mute yourself. It's easier. So everyone won't hear you. You're like screaming at me, you know. So Binoseyan deraisi, marrying their daughters is biblical. That's a biblical prohibition. Dichsiv, as it says, deraisa. You're not allowed to marry one of the people, one of the non-Jewish ladies. So what do you mean they decreed? It was a decree to not marry a idol worshiper's daughter. Sounds like it's biblical. And now we're going to go for a while back and forth about which part was biblical and which part was rabbinic. And so it says the Gemara, okay, first attack, Sheva Umos, maybe that verse is stated in the 7 nations that we have to come into Israel and destroy them and wipe them out. They can't be there. Aval Shar Ovdei Kochavim, but the rest of the idol worshippers, lo, who says that's biblical? The Asu Inu, and these rabbis came and made a decree, Afilu Deshar Ovdei Kochavim. Even on the rest of the idol worshippers, you can't marry their daughters either. Says the Gemara, okay, but what about Ular Shimon Yochai? According to Shimon Yochai, who says the Amr, Ki Yasser is Bincha Machorai, he has an extra verse which teaches you L'Rabbos Kol Mesiros. Sounds like anybody, even not from the 7 nations, you can't marry their daughter. So if you marry their daughter, that's going to be a biblical prohibition. Mike Lemeimar. What are you going to say? What was the decree to not marry their daughters? According to Shimon Yochai, it's biblical. Ella de Araisa, what's biblical? Ishus derech chasnus, relations with them in a marital state. Sounds like if you want to have a relationship with them, those kinds of relations are prohibited. The Asuinu and these rabbis came and decreed Gazer afilu derech znos, even when you have just a promiscuous relations with them, but not for a relationship, even that's going to be prohibited. That's going to be rabbinically prohibited. Says the Gemara, one sec. These rabbis decreed this. This is already decreed from a long time ago. Znus nami, amazing how far back. The Beis Dino shall shame Noach's son. And this is a fascinating Gemara. Noach's son made a decree that anybody from his family, really, I mean, Jews, not Jews, I mean, they're whatever status the Jews were in a time of shame. So he decreed that they cannot have even a one-time relation with an idol worshiper's daughter. So this is way before the Gemara's time. So the Beis Dino shall shame Gazru. How do I know? What happened with Yehuda and Tamar? Yehuda and Tamar. So she dressed up. He didn't realize who she was, and he went and he said, "Yomi Yehuda hotziu v'tisarei." She should be taken out and burnt. One sec. Why she getting capital punishment? All these penalties. Oh, apparently there's already a decree. You can't have just like a one-time stand with a one-time relation with someone who's not Jewish. So what do you see? It was already around then. Ella. Okay. So now we retract. What was biblical and what was rabbinic? Ella de'oraisa obekochavim habal bas Yisrael. Biblical is when an idol worshiper has relations with a Jewish girl, that's biblically forbidden. Demashcha basrei, she'll be pulled after him, drawn after him. Aval Yisrael, but a Jew, haba'al obedes kolchavim, if he has relations with a non-Jewish lady, with an idol worshiper's daughter, that biblically is not prohibited. The asu inhu, and came the rabbis and decreed, gazer afilu Yisrael, even a Jew, haba'al obedes kolchavim, even a Jew who goes and has relations with the non-Jew, even that's going to be prohibited. Says the Gemara, Yisrael haba'al obedes kolchavim, a Jewish male who has relations with an idol worshiper's daughter, haba'al obedes kolchavim, halacha l'Moshe Messinai. That's halacha l'Moshe Messinai. How do I know? Parshas Pinchas. What happened in Parshas Pinchas? They had relations, and the Amar Mar Haboel Aramis, one who has relations with an Aramean woman, is special halacha called Kinayin Pogenbo. The Kanai, the zealot, can go and be pogeabo, can go and kill them. Special allowance. And when such an act is done, you can go kill them. So you see that already is biblical. So now the Gemara says interesting. Maybe that's only deraises b'farhesia, who kemaise shahaya. That's only if it's done publicly. It doesn't mean they have relations in public, but it means that people know about it. That's biblical. This halacha of kinayin pogenbo, this halacha that if a person has relations with an Aramean and you can go and kill the person, if that's known means at least to 3 people, that's biblical. The asu inhu and gazer afilu b'tzina. And they went and they decreed that even if it's private, that not 3 people know about it, even that's going to be prohibited. Yeah. So either this means literally that it's just a funny thing. If the Torah would prohibit something, it's hard to understand why it would distinguish between people knowing about it or not. So I think some explain that, of course, that's also biblical. But however, they made a decree, of trying to avoid this happening even in private. I think I was looking it up. I think there's a footnote about it. But okay. Says the Gemara, one second. Relations in private, that's also way preceding the Gemara. B'tzina nami, Beis Dino shel Chashmonai. We're going off the Hanukkah now. The Beis Din of the Chashmonayim made a decree. Gazur, they made a decree about this. What was the decree? When Rav Dimi came, he said, Beis Din shel Chashmonai, Gazur Yisrael. They made a decree. Gazur Yisrael haba al avedas l'chavim. A Jew who has relations with a non-Jewish girl, chayev mishum nashga. You're chayev for 4 things they decreed about. They considered a non-Jewish girl nashga. What's nashga? Nida. We'll explain in a second. Nida, shivcha, is gilulim, and eshes ish. Meaning, even though the non-Jewish lady is not considered a nida biblically, but they gave her that status rabbinically, and they were worried for 4 things to which they decreed that you can't have relations with her. They were worried that first of all, they considered her a nida, so that's one problem. Second of all, they're worried that if you can have relations with her, you might come to have relations with a shivcha, with a maidservant, which is prohibited. If you have relations with this non-Jewish lady, then they viewed it as stringent, as if you're actually having relations to marry her, which we said earlier, relations in the relationship way, meaning for relationship is biblically prohibited. So they were worried even a one-time relations with a non-Jewish lady could lead to having a relationship with her. So they decreed on that. And mishum eish sish, and they said if you're gonna have a relationship with her, then you might come to cheat on your own wife with someone who's biblically prohibited to you. So because of those 4 reasons, they made a decree called nashga, nida shivcha, gilulim, and eish sish. They were worried that if you're gonna have a one-time relation with a non-Jewish girl, it's gonna lead to things that are gonna be biblical. Therefore, they said that if you do have relations with her, I think they gave you lashes, and they prohibited it. So we see this is already not having relations with a non-Jewish girl is already way earlier. He also Rabin, when Rabin came, he changed it slightly, not changed it, but he had a different version slightly. Instead of nashga with the aleph, chayv mishum nashgaz with the zayin. Zayin is referring to zona. Zona, Rashi explains, as if a Kohen, so a Kohen has another biblical prohibition of zona. Anybody that he can't marry is called a zona. So therefore they made a decree that if you're gonna have relations with her, then you'll have relations with somebody who's going to be prohibited for a Kohen. So either it's nashga or it's nashga, but either way, you're not allowed to have relations with them, not once, not for marriage, nothing, way before the Gemara. So Ki gazru beis dino shel chashmonai bia. Says the Gemara now, okay, they decreed having relation. Maybe when our Gemara made a decree, and the bread and the oil and the wine was all because of the non-Jewish girl. What was the non-Jewish girl? It was having seclusion with her. Aval yichud lo. Maybe seclusion was not yet prohibited until the Gemara came along and prohibited it. The asu inu gazra afilu yichud. So the Chashmonaim only decreed relation. Came the Beis Din over here, and they decreed, the court over here came and they decreed even seclusion. So says the Gemara, one second, seclusion was also around much earlier. Afilu yichud. Yichud nami beis dino shel David. David HaMelech was the first one to decree seclusion is prohibited. Gazru da Amar Yehuda also shag gazru al yichud. So it said at David's time they decreed that you cannot have seclusion. So you see, seclusion was around already. So what was the novelty of this decree of the bread, oil, and wine because of their daughters? What about their daughters? Relationships, no. One-time relation, no. Seclusion, no. So Amri Hasam, David HaMelech decreed about having seclusion with a Jewish girl. Hasam yichud bas Yisrael, ava yichud bas Kochavim, lo. David Melech is only having seclusion with a Jewish girl is prohibited. Came the court and they made a seclusion, even a seclusion with a non-Jewish lady is going to be prohibited. Says the Gemara, hold on, back up. Seclusion with a Jew is from David Melech. Yichud de Bas Yisrael de'oraisihi. It's really biblical. It's at the very end of Kiddushin has like a daf or two about Yichud. So, and that's it, basically. So, Yichud de Bas Yisrael de'oraisihi, that's biblical. How do I know? Very interesting verse. The verse is going to be in a totally separate context. The verse is really talking about somebody who tries to convince somebody to do idol worship. But the exposition of the Gemara is from there. What does it say? Rabbi Shimon ben Yehotzadok, Remez. What's the hint? So you see, it's not really an exact verse telling you it, but it seems like we have a tradition that was the biblical law, and we find a hint for it. Where's the hint? Minayin Shenamar, as it says. Yisischa means to veer you off track, to take you off. So when your brother, the son of your mother, when the brother, the son of your mother, veers you off, tries to take you off to make you do idol worship, says the Gemara, hold on. The whole parsha in the Torah about that guy called a Masis, who tries to get other people, Jews, to do idol worship, it's only referring to V'chi ben Aim, only the son of the mother, your mother's a Masis, but Ben Av ain't a Masis. Like if you share a father but not a mother, and he convinces you to do Avodah Zora, he's not called a Masis. We don't really care if he's the son of your mother or your father. We care that he veered you off track. Says the Gemara, no. I'll tell you, it's a hint to the following halacha. Ella ben misyachedim imo. The Torah is telling you the only person a son could have seclusion with is going to be his mother. The ein acher misyached im kol araya shebetorah. Says the Gemara, the only person out of all the prohibited relations in Parshas Acharemos and Kedushim that you're allowed to have seclusion with is going to be your mother. But everybody else, seclusion is going to be prohibited. So, the ein acher misyached im kol araya shebetorah. So, says the Gemara, okay, so what did David Melech do now? It's already biblical. No. That was talking about a guy who's already married. A guy who's already married cannot seclude with anybody else, only with his mother. The Asa David, the Gazer Afilo Ayicha de Pnuya. David Melech went and made a decree that even for a single girl, that was talking about a married girl. But David Melech said that even seclusion with a single girl is going to be prohibited. The Asu Talmide Be Shammai, and then the students of Shammai and Hillel came and Gazru Afilu Ayichud de Obedes Kochavim. And they made a decree that you cannot have seclusion even with a non-Jewish lady. So it seems like first came along the Torah and did not allow seclusion. Somebody with one's mother. David Melech came along and expanded it to even a lady who's single, not to have seclusion with a lady who's single, because you can say what's wrong with that if she's a single lady. So I guess if you're not married, or even if you are married, but let's say if you're not married, a single guy, why can't he seclude with a single woman? That's not going to be what's it going to lead to. It might lead to marriage. You never know. So right, so that he also prohibited any seclusion with a single girl, not only someone who you're prohibited to, not only one of the arayos, but even a single girl. And then came the students of Shammai and Hillel, and they said not only a Jewish girl, but really any idol worshiper girl also, you cannot have seclusion with. Okay. Now, before it said that we prohibited the bread, oil because of the wine, and the wine because of the daughters, and the daughters was because of something else, which because of something else. So what did we not want? We're worried that you might have seclusion with the idol worshiper's daughter because of davar acher. Sounds like idol worship, which was because of davar acher. So what does that cryptic statement mean? My all davar acher mishum davar acher. What does it mean about another matter because of another matter? What are these two matters? Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Gazru al Tino. They made a decree about a Tino Obed Kochavim Sheyitame beziva. They decreed about a 1 day old non-Jewish baby that it's going to impurify you, beziva, like the status of a ziva. Biblically, a ziva amidst a certain emission is biblically causes impurity. So they decreed about a non-Jewish girl from 1 day old that's going to be ziva. Why? Or a boy. Gazral tinok, a boy. Why? Shelo yehi tinok yisrael ragil atzlo b'mishkav zachar. So it seems like that if we did not decree this, what's going to happen? They're going to mingle together, a Jewish boy and a non-Jewish boy. And what's going to happen? What's going to happen is that he might convince the other one to come have relations with him. And we want to avoid that. So therefore, we said he's going to cause impurity, like the status of a ziva. So therefore, that's going to create an automatic distance between you and him. Damar Reb Zera, says Reb Zera, Sar Gala, I had a lot of pain, meaning I had to go through a lot of effort to find the answer. Eitzer of Asi, and Rav Asi, Eitzer of Yochanan. I went to Rav Asi, and then he went to Rav Yochanan, Rav Yochanan, Eitzer of Yanai. I went to all these people to figure out the answer to the following question. Rav Yochanan, Eitzer of Yanai, Rav Yanai, Eitzer of Nassan ben Amram, and he was by Ben Amram, and Rav Nassan ben Amram, Eitzer Rebbe. They all went, and he's trying to figure out the answer to the following question. He asked, and no one had the answer. Finally, from what age is the non-Jewish child going to have the status of a ziva that is going to impurify with the status of a zav, with the ziva? So the Amar Li, so he told me, Ben Yomo, 1 day old, okay. However, when I went to Rabbi Chia, he told me, Amar Li, Ben Teisha Shana V'Yomechad, 9 years old in 1 day. Now we'll see that number was not arbitrary, but that number was chosen because that's the minimal age that a boy could have relations. Therefore, prohibitions start for boys at 9, while for girls at 3. Ukishabasi veritisi dvar lefei Rebbe. When I went and I told Rebbe these things, these halachas, Amar Li, Hanach dvarai va'achos divrei Rebbe Chia. Leave my words and take Rebbe Chia. Go with Rebbe Chia. Rebbe Chia said that the idol worshippers' boy impurifies with a ziva at the age of 9 and 1 day. Next page. Hoil why v'roy lebia. That's the time that he's fitting to have relations. So therefore, metame nami beziva will also be impurified with ziva. Now, okay, Amar Ravina. Now let's extrapolate. If a 9-year-old boy is going to be impure, can cause impurity, and it's 9 years old and 1 day, because that's when he can have relations. So extrapolate that to a idol worshipper's daughter. What's with her? Amar Ravina hilkach hatinok a 3-year-old girl in 1 day. Since she's able to have relations at that age, she also could impurify with ziva. Says the Gemara, yeah, obviously, when they said 9 and 1 day for a boy, they didn't mean only a boy. It meant the person who's able to have relations, on them we decreed the ziva. We're talking about boy versus girl. We're talking about just in general. Person who's fitting for, so Pshita, that was obvious. No, it says you would have thought, since it only said boy, you would have thought only a boy. Why? The 9-year-old boy already knows how to get around. He already knows how to go have a play date with a Jewish boy and convince him to come over. But the 3-year-old girl is not really going around on her own so much. So the halo yada l'argule, she doesn't really know how to get around. She's 3 years old. Yet we still said, Kamash Balam, we still taught that a 3-year-old girl is going to cause impurity to the, it's going to cause impurity, even though she can't really, make her own plans for herself. But yeah, this way was prevented. Okay. Mistamech va'azor Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya Kasped Rabbi Simulai. So now, Shameh. Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya, who was the grandson of Rabbeinu HaKadosh, who wrote the Mishnayos. This was his grandson. So it's relevant because we didn't get a chance to see it together, but the Mishnah says that it talks about Rebbe Ubeis Dino allowing the oil. Rash says take it out. It's a mistake in the Mishnah because it's really Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya. It's referring to Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya. So whatever, it's important to know sometimes who's who. So Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya was leaning on the shoulder, meaning being supported by Rabbi Simlai, his servant. So Amrullah, he told Simlai, Aloha Yisa Emesh, based on Medrash. Yesterday you weren't there in the study hall. Guess what happened yesterday? You missed a lot of action. What happened yesterday? We actually allowed the decree on the oil. Until now, oil was prohibited, and now we permitted idol worshippers oil. So Amar Lo, so Simlai the servant told Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya, so why don't you also allow the bread then of the idol worshiper? Yeah, whole Pas Yisrael out the window. Let's just allow it. Amar Lo bi'amenu tati afasapas. Allow the bread too. Once you allow the oil, allow the bread. So Amar Lo, Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya said back to his servant, no, what's going to happen? I'm going to allow the bread too. You know what's going to happen to me? Karulan Beis Dina Sharia. They're gonna call me the permissible Bezdin. Sounds like you don't want to be known as the guy who allows everything, right? You got to have some limits, some backbone, you know. So, because probably what it means is that when you have that name, so people are less likely to go to you. You're less authoritative. You have less respect in people's eyes. He allows everything.
The liberals go to those.
Yeah, the liberals go to yeah. It's yeah. So it's very true. People do talk like I'm having conversations. He's a makel. He allows everything. You know, the people do talk like that. You know, so you have to have a balance. You know, so okay. So now let's see the Tanan. Let's see somewhere else, and that's going to digress us for a while. So about this idea of a permissible court. The Tanan, as the Mishnah states in Adios, Heid Rabbi Yossi ben Yoezer. I think there's exactly did he decree it or he just said over a decree from earlier? So hey, Rabbi Yossi ben Yoezer, you just missed the Musar Mashmul. You have to have a backbone. Yeah. So you have to have a backbone. Don't forget. So it can't just be leaning all the time. So hey, Rabbi Yossi ben Yoezer ish Treda. Rabbi Yossi ben Yoezer ish Treda from Treda. Right, it comes up in the first chapter of Pirkei Avos. He did the following. Al ayil kamsa, which we'll see. It's a certain kind of grasshopper. Dachan, he said that's pure, not impure. It's kosher. It's a dachan. It's kosher. So this kind of grasshopper was going to be kosher, and you're allowed to eat it. Some you're not allowed to eat. There's 4 kinds of grasshoppers. So some you are allowed to eat. Some you're not allowed to eat. The al mashke beis mitbachya dachan, and beis mitbachya was a slaughterhouse in the base of Migdash. It was shechna korbanos. So the liquids, the blood and the water that came from there was also pure. We'll see they made a decree that liquids, if they become impure, can cause impurity. However, not these liquids. Now it's going to be a debate on the next Talmud. Does it mean that they really get impure biblically, but they can't pass it on? Or it means they don't even get impure at all biblically or rabbinically. So, but they're on some level, they're more pure than other liquids. For sure, they cannot pass on their impurity. Machlokas is going to be Rav and Shmuel. Can they themselves even become impure? So, okay, that was 2 things that were purified. The al dikarav lemesav masal, and this is going to be obviously bothersome for 2 reasons. Someone who comes close to a dead person is impure. So we know that if you touch a dead person, that's biblically a problem. That doesn't take his bezdin to do that. That's 1. And 2 is there's 3 things here that he said. 2 he permitted, 1 he prohibited. But we're calling him now the Karule Yosef Sharia. He's now referred to as Yosef, the permissible one. So the Gemara is going to ask, 1 second, the 3rd thing wasn't a permissibility. It was something he prohibited. So the Gemara is going to figure out what it means. But right now, we're proving that what happened. Yosef ben Yoezer, in 3 instances, permitted something. And you know what happened to him? He's now called Yosef, the permissible one. So Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya says, listen, I permitted the oil, but you, my servant, Simlai, wanted to know, why don't I permit bread? Because then I'll be known as the court of the permissible court. And I don't want to have that name like we see from Yosef. Who got that name? Yosef Sharia. Okay. Says Simlai, the servant, back to Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya, that's not a fair comparison. Amrle Hasam Sharat Tlat. He permitted 3 things. You only permitted 1, the oil. So you only permitted the oil. If you permit the bread, who says you're going to get a name of the permissible court? Maybe only Yosef ben Yoezer, Rabbi Yosef ben Yoezer, who permitted 3 things, then he got that title. So back to the drawing board. You should allow the bread. If all you're worried about is getting a bad reputation of a lenient court, who says you'll get that? You've only permitted 2 things then, oil and bread. So, Hasam Shar Tlat Umar Shar Echada. If you permit one more thing, that's only 2 things you permitted, not 3 things. So says Rabbi Dovid, no, you don't know this, but I actually permitted something else. And that's going to digress us for a while. I permitted something else, which is 2. If I permit the bread, it's going to be 3, and then I'll get the name of a permissible court. And that's what I don't want. What is the third thing? What's the second thing that he permitted? Maihi. We're jumping to Gittin. Okay, so Maihi says the Mishnah in Gittin. So a guy gives his wife a divorce document, a get, and he says, this is your divorce. This is your get. Here you go. Im lo basi, if I do not return from now until 12 months. So I'm going off on a business trip. I'm touring the world, taking off flotilla. Who knows? Yeah, I'm going on a cruise. Now, if I don't come back within 12 months, you're divorced. So for sure, if 12 months are up and the husband's nowhere to be seen, then she's for sure divorced. For sure, if he comes back within 12 months, they're for sure still married. What happens if he dies in the middle? Well, on the one hand, he didn't have a chance to get back in 12 months. After 12 months, you can't give a divorce after someone died. After 12 months, you can't say, oh, now it's going to be a divorce. Well, he's not around to give it. So you can't do that either. On the other hand, okay, so let's see. So Zegi, they can if I don't come between now and 12 months, and now what happened with Mace? He died. Besoch Shnei Masar Chodesh. He died within 12 months. Says the Gemara, Eino Get. It's not considered a good document. Simply understood because he is not able to come back after 12 months, and therefore the divorce document is supposed to take effect after 12 months. But the rule is you can't give a divorce after you're dead, right? You're not here anymore. So even if you planned it ahead of time, you can't do that either. So therefore, the first opinion is he's not going to be divorced. They're going to still be married. Vitani Allah, and we taught on this Mishnah about the Rabbi Seinu. There were a certain group of rabbis that hitiru halina say they allowed her to get remarried, meaning it was a good divorce. But Amrina, we said, Man Rabbi Seinu, who are these rabbis? Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel, it's Beis Dina de Shara Mishcha. You know what it is? It's that court that allowed that oil, which is us, Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya. Why did they allow this lady to get remarried? Because Sabri law Rabbi Yossi. The Amar Zmano Shel Shtar Mochiach Allah. Now, Rabbi Yossi holds that, see, if the document would have said you're divorced from now, right? And it'll take effect after 12 months, but really it's from now, then retroactively, she's divorced from 12 months earlier. Even if he were to die within the 12 months, it would still be considered a divorce. That's only if you write from now. However, Rabbi Yossi says you don't have to write, you have a date on the document. The date itself proves, it's mochiach alav, it proves that from today you want it to be. You want it from today, hayom, from mehayom. Right. So that's Rabbi Yossi's opinion. The Amr Rabbi Ahma braid Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya hora velo hodulo. Kol shaita. Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya, he was the one who said this. He allowed this. But it sounds like every moment they didn't agree to him. I mean, it sounds like the rabbis of his time disagreed with him. The Amrillah, some say Kol Siato, his whole group disagreed with him. But either way, Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya allowed one allowance of this lady to get remarried. He allowed the oil to be. He permitted the oil. Now, it's interesting because the two are very different. Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya was just going like the opinion of Rabbi Yossi. Like he wasn't permitting a decree that was. Oil was decreed upon, and he permitted it. But either way, he felt that I'm allowing something else, which everyone disagrees with me upon, that I'm lenient about. I'm allowing the oil, which is a novelty of mine. If I allow the bread, that's going to be 3, and then I'll be known as the court that's permissible, and that's not going to be good. Amr le Rabbi Lazar lahu saba. So, okay, so now we're getting involved in this whole idea of divorce. Amr le Rabbi Lazar lahu saba. Ki sharyusa la'alter sharyusa delo asi odim la'akar 12 chodesh deha ekayim leitanai. So on this story that just took place of the guy of the guy that says I'll give you a divorce in 12 months and he dies in the middle. So he's permitted to get remarried. Okay. So when is she permitted? Is she permitted right away when he dies? Or is she only permitted once the stipulation was fulfilled after 12 months? So the tibayilach amasnisin. So says the Gemara, why are you says Gemara, you can ask this question on the Mishnah. Says the Mishnah, in the case where you actually say you're divorced from now, if I don't come back after 12 months, and he dies within 12 months, so it's for sure a get, right? It's retroactively a get from now. So divorced. So it's a get. Why? The ha'ik kaim late tonight, because he fulfilled the stipulation. He ain't coming back. He's not coming back. The tibayilach, you can ask over there. Well, when is it going to be a divorce? Awesome to hear yourself. Huh? So 3 times over. Yeah. So the tibayilach la'alter have gita the halo asa. When is the divorce? Is it right away? Right away, it's considered. The second he dies as a divorce. The halo asa. Look, he didn't come. Oh, Dilma, no, you actually have to wait 12 months. And you have to wait till the actual stipulation is fulfilled. So basically, we're asking, why are you asking on the case that Rabbi Dovid allowed? Just ask on the Mishnah. You're asking on that case. But the Mishnah itself, which everyone agrees to, allows such that when you say you're divorced from today, I don't come back, there everyone agrees that she's going to be divorced. So why don't you ask over there, from when is she allowed to get remarried? From his death, or from when, or from after 12 months. So to that we say, you're right. I could have asked that. I could have asked on a Mishnah. I just happened to be there when Rabbi Dovid permitted this. I was there in the courtroom or whatever. So that's why I asked it on that case. But you're right. I could have asked on a Mishnah also. Just the story was that it happened and I was there. So once it happened, I piped up and I had a question. Okay, let's try 2 minutes. Amar Rabbi, Jules will have to forgive us. Yeah. Amar Rabbi, Hakol modim artika. Guys, my wife is divorced. He says when the sun comes out the next morning from its sheath, So now lechinafka kamarla. So okay, so when it comes out in the morning, for sure divorced. Now the guy dies in the middle of the night. The chimai is belayla. So how do you view that? That's get la'achar misahu. That is not a good divorce because she's only divorced from the morning when the sun comes up, and he's not around in the morning to be there. So therefore, not a good divorce. Fine. So if he says on condition, you're divorced, here you go, on condition that the sun comes out from its sheath. If the sun rises tomorrow morning. So me'achshav kamarla. Now, v'chimai is balayla. So now the guy dies at nighttime. So now, how do you view this? He gives the divorce right away. He has a condition. Do you say it's really a divorce from now? There's just a condition you have to fulfill. Or do you say, no, the whole divorce is conditional and it's only a divorce from later? How do you view that? Here's a divorce on condition. It's divorce now. Just a technicality. You got to fulfill that condition. Or no, it's really divorce from later. How do you view that? So now, B'chi Ma'is Balayla. So Havadai Tanai Have, they get Mechaimu. If you give it to now on condition that the sun comes up, the next morning. So if he dies at nighttime, well, the sun came up the next morning. So that's for sure it's been fulfilled. And get Mechaimu. And it's considered a divorce while he was alive, even though he's not here the next morning, but he gave it to her right now, and that is like the novel opinion of Rav Huna. What did Rav Huna say? Anybody who gives a divorce and then says on condition, it means right now. Meaning, really, you want the divorce to take place right now. You have a technicality of a condition to be fulfilled, but it's not that you're placing the whole divorce on that condition. You really want it now. You made a technicality to have to come true. So once that technicality is fulfilled, the divorce is retroactive. Right? So you want the divorce from now. You just put a stipulation into it. But really you want it to happen now. For whatever reason, you made the stipulation. So therefore, Rav Huna says that's like saying me'achshav from now. And therefore, that everyone agrees to. Let's get to the period. That's a new thing. Ela b'im teitze. If you say, if the sun comes up, not when it comes up, if the sun comes up, then you'll be divorced. So then, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi suffer like Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi goes like Rabbi Yossi. That says, but the get is dated from tonight, from today. Therefore, that's like saying right now. And therefore, the date of the document itself proves that you want it to be right now. That's like me'achshav, v'havelei k'mehayom. That's like from today, if I die. That's k'me'achshav imesi. That is Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, same as earlier. And the Rabbanan say, no, we don't hold a Rabbi Yossi that the date itself proves. You have to say the word me'achshav. And since you didn't say it, Rabbanan let's the Rabbi Yossi, v'havelei, it's equivalent to kizeh gitech imesi. There's no, it's no different than saying, here's the divorce if I die. And then here's the divorce if the sun comes up. If he dies at nighttime and the sun came up, so then he's not around anymore and they're not considered divorced. Okay. Yeah. You may see great. Sorry for the little rush at the end. Now we have 1 minute to that.